everybody, it's Andra. I have been asked numerous times to give an explanation of why I make kidney stones. A lot of well-meaning people send me a lot of articles about natural ways that I can cure the kidney stones and if I took this medicine or etc. And I never get tired of people sending me things that suggestions on how to get rid of kidney stones, but along with that came the need to just explain why I get kidney stones and why those methods don't work for me. A lot of people get kidney stones, and I hear often people say, well, it feels like there's more kidney stones now than there used to be 50 years ago or 100 years ago, and that may very well be true because a lot of the food that we eat and different things can very well contribute to kidney stones. But I think a lot of the reason why we're seeing more kidney stones is because radiologically it is much more advanced. When I passed my first kidney stone, over 20 years ago, the x-rays were about all we had, and those aren't very good at tracking kidney stones. CT scans now, the renal scans, we just have so many more things now that we can do to find them, even the smaller ones. So I think one of the major reasons that you hear about more kidney stones is because they can just find them easier now. But the reason that I pass kidney stones is because I actually have a kidney disorder. It's a congenital defect, if you must, that I was born with. It's actually in the NORD, and for my medical friends, you know that that stands for the National Organization for Rare Disorders. So it's not very common, and that's why a lot of people don't know about it. So for those of you who could care less about kidney stones, just fast forward to the rest of the video. That's funny, and the kids did a lot of stuff for this video, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. But for those of you who specifically ask, why does she get so many kidney stones? I'm going to explain that. And I've met people from all around the world, especially now that we have social media. I've met a lot of people that have trouble with kidney stones. And while they may not share the same disorder that I have, a lot of the same treatments work. So, being in contact and being able to explain where I found help and how I was diagnosed can just be a help to others. So the main reason that we started this channel was so that we could be a blessing to others. We went through some pretty rough things in our life, some pretty big things, and we can take all those things that were hard to go through and we can share what we have learned. And if we can, be a blessing to even one person, to us it's totally worth it. So I was born with sponge kidney, or medically known as medullary sponge kidney. Basically, the filtration system of my kidneys is broken. So there's actually little tubes throughout your kidney that filter everything. If you think of a sponge and it has all the little holes, and that's the water goes through the holes, or all your fluids, mine actually are filled with cysts, and some of them are actually broken. They can be bent, they can just be plugged at one end so you can't get any filtration. They're a mess. So one doctor explained it like, imagine you had a PVC pipe. You can pour water through it freely. Well, imagine you put a bunch of sand and water balloons inside this PVC pipe and then try to pour fluid through it. Well, it's almost like a Plinko game. It might go down, but if it does, it's got a rough course to go through. So I struggle with hydronephrosis a lot, where my kidneys back up. Had a lot of nephrostomy tubes in my lifetime. However, those have their own set of problems. So we try to manage all of this with just medication. The second disorder I have is primary hyperparathyroidism. And so having those two together is like the worst case scenario you could have. Because if I just had a body that all my calcium and potassium and all of those things were perfect, then they would still have to get through kidneys that were broken, if you will. But I have primary hyperparathyroidism, and that means my body does not transfer sodium, calcium, potassium, and then the list goes on correctly. So my body makes a lot of crystals because of that. My body actually, my body will actually take calcium from my bones to make kidney stones. And so I see a nephrologist, excuse me, I see a nephrologist, and we meet every 3 months, and he just tries to work on how much potassium do I need now, how much sodium do I need. Having those balanced is the best case scenario. Since we've moved here to Massachusetts, I've met a wonderful doctor, and he's following the same program that I had when I lived in Indiana and traveled 5 hours to Cleveland Clinic. I'm so thankful he's 10 minutes from my house, so I don't have to make those long trips every month, sometimes every week, sometimes every few months. It just depended on how things were going. So back to the sponge kidney, my kidneys just aren't designed for free flow of fluid. So that in itself makes things back up, and they can create stones that way. Infections are very common, but because I have primary hyperparathyroidism, I just essentially mass produce kidney stones, especially if even one of my chemicals is off. If the sodium is off, if the calcium is off, if the potassium is off, or just one of those, then we get in a really bad situation quickly, because these giant crystals, if they stick in my kidneys, they form into kidney stones. So the medications are just acids and bases, and they help my body to stabilize so that I can have a more free flowing fluid. So you have 4 parathyroid glands tucked behind your thyroid in your neck. Your parathyroids are responsible for regulating your entire calcium in your body. So they are very, very important. When that's out of whack, you feel very sick. About 15 years ago, I would just have extreme fatigue. I would sometimes feel like, if you ever had the flu and your brain just feels kind of foggy from the fever, well, that's how you feel like when you have high calcium. So through some blood tests, they could see that I had high calcium, and that is not normal. So they began testing, and they saw that my PTH hormone, which is the hormone released by your parathyroid glands, was high. So they can do several tests to look for a gland. It's typically one gland with a single small tumor that's causing the problem. You have surgery, they go in and take that out. You're literally cured. So if you have no further kidney problems, you're literally cured the rest of your life, and you'll have no problems. But the goal for me was, even though I would live with this kidney disorder my whole life, if I could slow down the production of stones, I mean, I could live a pretty normal life. So I went into surgery. The goal was to go in and remove what they thought they saw on the scans was one small tumor. While I was asleep, they took out the first gland. They test the hormone while you're still asleep. It did drop, but it didn't drop anywhere near normal. It was still like 4 or 5 times the normal. So they took out the second gland, still too high. They take out the third one, it's still too high. So they knew at that point they were dealing with something a little more rare. So the doctor went ahead and took out all of the fourth one minus 25%. So imagine 25% of a grain of rice. That's all she left in my body. They sewed things back up, and they sent it to pathology. The pathologist said that essentially I had what's called hyperplasia, which is diseased. So all of the glands, all of my entire parathyroid system was diseased. So that's why the numbers were so high. They actually froze the diseased glands, because your body needs 4 to regulate your entire calcium system. So you go down to just 25% of one of those. Typically what can happen is over time, that one just kind of, they call it poops out. It just gets tired. It just doesn't work anymore. And so you get a parathyroid transplant. And that's where they take the diseased one, a portion of one or a whole one, I'm not really sure. And they actually implant it into your forearm here. so that your body can still have a parathyroid gland endocrine system to regulate your calcium. They cryofroze those, so part of my body still lives in Cleveland Clinic. But mine, I mean, I had that surgery in 2000, I believe 13 or 15, I can't even remember now. But anyway, mine never stopped working, the little piece that I have. So we were very, very thankful for that. The only problem is I was doing really good and the kidney stones were very minimal. And then about March of this year, you know, I just wasn't feeling good. And it turns out that my parathyroid hormone has went high again. So they are now watching it to see if the tumors grew back. We did not know that the tumors could regenerate. They are benign, so they are not cancerous, but it's rare that they regenerate. So they're watching the numbers to see if, you know, my body's just having a period where it's just messed up for a while for whatever reason, or if the tumors are coming back. So if the tumors come back, then we'll talk about another surgery, and we're not sure how that's going to play out, but chances are I could end up with having going back to Cleveland Clinic and having a diseased one put back into my arm to see if one of those would regulate it better. So the reason I'm making so many stones right now is because either the tumors have grown back or they're just, the disease part that's left in there is just not working properly at this point. So I'm working closely with the nephrologist, and he's helping me to regulate all of the calcium and sodium and things like that. I am on a very, very special diet. Most people eat 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day. That's what you should shoot for, but the American diet is terrible. So if you eat fast food, you've probably got the 2,000 milligrams in one meal. I mean, there's so much sodium in prepackaged food, and especially fast food restaurants. So I have to stay away from all of that, and I have to eat very, very little sodium. I take potassium supplements, I take magnesium supplements, vitamin D supplements. The normal vitamin D for most women is somewhere between 40 and 60, and at last check mine was 4. So it's just a constant struggle to regulate all of those chemicals and vitamins and minerals that my body needs so that the fluids can flow as freely as they are able to through a broken system. So that's why at times I really mass produce kidney stones. Thankfully, through the knowledge of the nephrologist and the urologist, they have found a way that even if I'm mass producing stones, they're still flowing pretty well. And so these stones are small and I can pass them at home and it's fine. It's not a big deal. And part of that too is probably just so much scar tissue in my kidneys. I don't feel it as bad. So I'm fortunate and I'm thankful for that. Thankful for the doctors that I have. My nephrologist is 10 minutes from my house, so I couldn't be any more blessed in that aspect. I have met people through social groups and just people in the community at different hospitals from all around the world. People struggle with this in other countries that they don't have the medical intervention that I do, so I feel extremely blessed. I hate this kidney disease. I hate that I have to go through it. I don't like it and I don't wish it on anyone, but if I have to go through it, I want to be there to even answer questions if someone has questions, or just to be a support and say, hey, I know what you're going through and it's awful, but I'll pray for you. Because honestly, you know, if we can just be a shoulder for people, just have, you know, sometimes you don't need to say anything. You just need to sit and listen. Because when people are going through tough things, especially trying to get diagnosed with a rare disease, this wasn't something that was diagnosed overnight. I was sent to Mayo Clinic in Florida. They have a great kidney stone clinic. They didn't know. They said, I'm sorry, but we've never really seen this and we really don't know what to do. And Mayo Clinic's a really, really good place to go. And I have seen so many nephrologists and so many urologists, and it's hard. You know, there were times I would be in the hospital weeks, especially when they removed most of my left kidney. Noah and Kelly were little. They were like not quite 5 years old, and I had been in the hospital over a month. That was one of the hardest times of my life because I felt separated from my family. You know, Josh was wonderful, but we had twins at home, and I needed to know that the twins were covered, that they were good. So even though he wanted to be with me and support me, I needed him to be there for the kids so that I could actually relax, because as a mom, you want to know that your babies are taken care of. So I just appreciate so much that my family they've been there. Josh has been there through, you know, sometimes when a kidney stone hits, it's not like, oh, I think I might have a kidney stone, I'm hurting. It could be in the middle of a birthday party, and then all of a sudden, anyone that's had a kidney stone knows the pain is severe. You know, I've given birth to 5 kids, and I can honestly say it's worse than any birth I've given. And I don't know if that's a mindset, because you know that when you're giving birth that eventually, you know, the baby's going to come out. But with the kidney stone, it can be weeks. And it's interrupted life a lot. There's been a lot of, you know, birthdays or holidays or special events that all of a sudden I get this pain and I have to go to the hospital. For me, if I get the stomach flu, that's like awful, because I have to drink between 1.5 gallons and 2 gallons of water a day to keep things moving through. And you know, you've had the stomach flu before, you know that it's easy to get very dehydrated very quickly. And so if I can't maintain that high amount of liquid, then I have to go to the hospital and I have to lay there on their comfortable ER beds just getting IVs, you know, until my body feels better. Your kidneys regulate your blood pressure. And so getting a diagnosis was extremely important. Before I was diagnosed, my blood pressure, and this is not an exaggeration, it was 250 over 130. And they were worried that I would have a stroke before they could figure out what was going on. So I was sent to Cleveland Clinic as like a last-ditch effort. Our insurance company was like, you know, let's give Cleveland Clinic a try. So 5-hour trip each way. But when I got there, they have a new way they handle these kind of cases. They have you come in and they have the nephrologist and the urologist meet together. And it's starting to pour rain, so if it gets a little loud, that's why. It's beautiful though. But anyway, anyone that has kidney disease, they know that having a nephrologist and a urologist together, it's amazing, because used to they would have me see one of them, and then that person would say, okay, take all this information and go to the next specialist. But things always get lost in the process. No matter how meticulous you can be in the doctor recording his thoughts, I can never explain exactly what he might be saying to me and the little 2 lines that he has on a form to fill out. It's not going to adequately explain everything. So having them all in one room together was essential in getting a diagnosis. So if there's anyone out there that's, you know, struggling with some kind of kidney disorder, I highly recommend you find a place, a specialist, a hospital that does these meetings, especially just the initial one where they're all sitting in a room together. You can explain what's been going on with you. You can bring the records, and they can all share thoughts, because that was the key in getting my diagnosis. And instantly they got my blood pressure down to normal, and my life's changed because of that, and I'm so thankful. So that's enough for now, because the storm's rolling in. So if you know of anyone that has medullary sponge kidney, I'd love to connect with them. We have several support groups online, and it's just nice to meet with people that are going through the same thing. You know, we can encourage each other. But I'm happy to pray for anyone that has a need, that they're like, hey, I'm going through a rough time. You know, this is something I do privately, so shoot me an email. God didn't give me these big ears for nothing, so I'm happy to listen. I would never give medical advice to anyone. I'm just saying this is my experience, and I'm happy to, in a private conversation, share like my doctor's name that's taking patients if there's someone out there that's having a hard time getting diagnosed. So thanks for listening, and we hope you like the rest of the video. Our kids are loving seeing all of the likes and the messages that we get and the encouragement. And like I said, we just want to be an encouragement to other families. We have a great life. We are so thankful, so happy. We love to choose joy because, hey, every day is a choice, and everything that comes out of our mouth is a choice. So if you can choose joy, your whole day is changed by that. So I just encourage you today to choose joy, because there's a whole lot of stuff going on around each of us every day that can bring us down. You know, this world is just a dark place a lot, and a lot of just horrible stuff happens every day, but there's also a lot of good stuff. So just choose joy, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Gabriel, do you have a... Gabriel? Just a second. Oh! Ah! Yes, Gabriel, do you have a question? Gabriel? Gabriel, what's your question? Gabe, Ah! Chloe and Gabe, according to my clock, you have about 15 minutes left of silent reading time. Okay?
Okay.
I said silent reading time. Silent means quiet. Could you flip those pages any louder, Gabe? Okay, that wasn't a challenge. Silent and still. Stop it.